Hello and welcome to Good Morning Sri Lanka. You're here with me on the 5th of February, the day right after our Independence Day, and you're here with Harit, and we have a wonderful show lined up. Plenty of interesting stories, a little bit about the Oscar buzz and the stories and the rumors spreading around who will be the best director, who will be getting the best film, and so on, as well as catching up with Victoria Azarenka and something that she was up to in Australia. And also a wonderful guest, we have a writer from California, who's of course Sri Lankan. We'll discuss whether she's in fact Sri Lankan as well. Who wrote the book Island with 1,000 Mirrors, who's just flown into Sri Lanka 3 days back, and we have a fantastic and spectacular interview lined up about that spectacular book that she has written as well. Of course, yesterday being the Independence Day celebrations, of course, in Trincomalee for the first time, the president making some very interesting comments. For example, saying that anyone who incites racial tensions and makes it difficult for someone to another citizen of this country to live is no better than a terrorist, which was a very strong statement coming from the president himself, leading from the events in the past where there were, in the last few weeks itself, where there was so much racial tension and hatred and so many issues that even we at Good Morning Sri Lanka were discussing, which are not good signs. And of course the book that we are going to discuss also will bring a good insight into that whole story as well. Of course, today being an important day for the Sri Lankan women's cricket team, they are playing the Indian ladies today, and it's a crucial match, and it's a must win if we need to go into the next round. That will be the semi-finals, of course, coming from a shocking defeat against the Windies, which was not so great because they were whooped really by 209 runs, and the Windies scoring a record-breaking 175, one lady of 124 balls and another couple of 50s in 20 balls and 21 balls and so on. But before that, we have a glimpse of the Independence Day celebrations, I think, coming up as well, and I think we'll have a look at it. No, it's not coming yet, but as I was saying with this the cricket matter, so today's match is indeed very important. Of course, Sri Lankan girls were great with the English team, beating the past world champions with a fantastic last wicket win, which was indeed a great joy and great pride for the Sri Lankan cricket. And also, with regard to the Sri Lankan Independence Day, it went international. Of course, normally when you talk about our Sri Lankan Independence Day, we are very happy, we are all proud, and it's a matter for some to go on a trip and enjoy the long weekend as well. But Google, for the first time, I believe, had a Google Doodle in which they had broadcasted the fact that it was Sri Lanka's Independence Day, and it is a shocker. In fact, I just went to Google to search something, and there we have it on screen, and there goes our Sri Lankan line, of course in red this time, not in yellow, but very interesting. And this is done by a Sri Lankan user for Google who had requested that Google do such a doodle. I think a gentleman called Buddhika Nuwan had requested Google, and great to see that Google in fact accommodated him. I think it's very interesting because maybe Google wants to create a better impression with the Sri Lankans, because there was a time where Minister Vimal Weerawansa made a crazy comment that we should boycott Google because it's a United States product and so on and so forth, and maybe Google said, okay, let's show the Sri Lankan people that we care about them, and they cared about our Independence Day to give prominence to the world. Everyone in the world would have seen that it's Sri Lanka's Independence Day, and it was great. I wonder what Mr. Vimal Weerawansa will say now. So, of course, there may be also some interesting comebacks for the same thing. For example, the international community, with regard to who don't like what is happening in Sri Lanka, may not really like what Google did, in fact, because they don't believe sometimes that Sri Lanka is in fact independent, and there are matters that are coming up in the upcoming March Universal Periodic Review, so we don't know what happens. Of course, very interesting story from the weekend where the IPL auctions were held in India, and several Sri Lankan players were also bought for several prizes. Ajantha Mendis, Akila Dhananjaya, Jeevan Mendis, Kusal Pereira, Sachitra Senanayaka, Tisara Pereira were among the Sri Lankans who were auctioned in this whole scenario. Some interesting ones being Sachitra Senanayaka, whopping up 625,000 USD, which is a great achievement for him. He hasn't played much one-day international cricket either. And Ajantha Mendis with 725,000 for the Pune Warriors. Something worrying I saw was the fact that Akila Dhananjaya was bought for $20,000 to Chennai Super Kings. Now, Akila Dhananjaya happens to be a future mystery spinner, and it seems very strange that the Indian captain, who captains the franchise Chennai Super Kings has bought him over. So I wonder if our mystery will be revealed and taken, and that's something that Sri Lanka cricket should be aware of, because it is in fact a dangerous thing, because our players and their skills, for example what happens to Malinga when he goes to Mumbai Indians, they know how to play him. And it's very dangerous. Of course, Mumbai Indians, speaking about them, Ricky Ponting was bought by them for $400,000, and the highest player at this auction was a $1 million bid for Glenn Maxwell. You would remember Glenn Maxwell from last week. Following our last one-day match, Mahela and Glenn Maxwell had a brilliant fight on show, and Mahela gave him tight right on the field, and there's a lot of Australian Sri Lankan bashing going on, and so much fighting. But Glenn Maxwell has been bought for $1 million. I don't know how he's worth $1 million, because he's just played some big bash matches, and it's interesting how he was that bought. And of course, as I told you, we have a few stories about the Oscars. Of course, very interesting. I heard that after his recent success with some awards, Ben Affleck wants Argo to go all the way and be successful in the Oscars as well. But let's have a look at what Steven Spielberg has done. Steven Spielberg's film was Lincoln. A great film. It was I think a biography of the film with Daniel Day-Lewis starring, and a very interesting movie. And the rumors are that Steven Spielberg will vie for the best director, even though he may not be getting the best film. So let's have a quick look at that and return.
American filmmaker Steven Spielberg is the clear favorite among the public to win the Best Director award for his film about US President Abraham Lincoln at the Academy Awards this year, a Reuters poll showed on Wednesday. While the race to win Best Film at the 24th February ceremony was shaken up by Argo stealing the thunder of Lincoln at 2 award ceremonies last weekend, the Best Director statue was deemed destined for one man.
Self-evident truth that things which are equal to the same thing are equal to each other.
Spielberg, 66, who has been nominated 7 times for Best Director at the Oscars and won twice for the World War II drama Schindler's List in 1993 and Saving Private Ryan in 1998, was seen as far ahead in the all-male field of 5 vying for Best Director.
So I like Zero Dark 30, don't get me wrong, but Lincoln was powerful, gripping.
Almost half of the respondents to the survey conducted between January 25th and 29th were unsure who should or was most likely to be voted Best Director. The accuracy of the poll uses a statistical measure called a credibility interval and is precise to within 2.8 percentage points.
What he said in the letter.
Yeah, anything you want to know, I'll just tell you in the letter. It was nothing about it. It was just a very general letter.
Cool. She's fine.
She is my friend with an F.
And there we have it, Steven Spielberg. And a few more interesting stories from the Oscar as well. 38% believe that Spielberg will win the Best Director for this feature, but 38%, no one really thinks that he will win the best film for this effort. Of course, several other films are competing, and we have to wait for the 24th of February to see what happens. Of course, another interesting story that we have is MTV Sports, your champion network, that is Sirasa, Shakti and MTV Sports are joining together in an attempt to spread patriotism, the feeling of patriotism and a sense of pride. Your Champions Network is coming up with a very new initiative called the MTV Nidahas Run, aiming towards bringing harmony and bridging gaps and an inclusive participation in this country. And this is by having a Nidahas Run scheduled to be held on the 10th of February 2013 at 6 a.m. So get up early, and with that feeling of patriotism and feeling of inclusivity in this country as one country, go on this run from the Bambalapitiya station to the Independence Square, I believe. And I'll come back with more details right after this break.